And I let everyone in, and you can also let them in, and
I'll just crack on.
hang off. Bye.
Okay, I think we're all in. Hi, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to you all today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Lindsay. I'm the Director of the Dairy Sustainability Framework, but I also had the absolute pleasure of project managing the latest update of the International Dairy Federation carbon footprint standard for the dairy sector. So you've got me as your host for today. I'm not the expert. The names are all on the screen here. These are just some of the names that helped us develop this latest update, and it was a real collaboration of a range of different expertise. We've got over 650 registrations for today. They come from across the EU, Malaysia even, Sri Lanka, India, Zimbabwe, Chile, Ecuador, Canada, USA, Nepal, Israel, Oceania, Iran, Kenya, just to name a few. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention your country, but you're certainly acknowledged and welcome. But within those registrations, we've got farmers, fantastic. We've got farmer organisations, dairy companies, input providers at both farm level and at processing level, consultants, we've even got governments, and we've got academia logged on here as well. So we've got a really rich mix of expertise here. The purpose of today, well, I'm calling it Share to Implement. And that's so critical that we implement the technology and the innovations we develop as a dairy sector. Carbon footprinting and greenhouse gas, the understanding of greenhouse gas emissions is critical to the acceleration of climate action by the dairy sector. And the Dairy Sustainability Framework, the greenhouse gas emissions is the #1 priority and has been since we started the DSF in 2013. And that's 32% of the global milk production prioritising this. So it is critically important for us as an industry to be to understand. And then we've also got the Pathways to Dairy Net Zero initiative that has that focus on mitigation by the dairy sector so we can reach that net zero ambition as a global collective producing fantastic nutrition. So it's all about, for us, it's about sharing the knowledge on the successes, but also the failures. We learn from failures. And we need to speak the same language. And that's what this document helps us do. We're comparing like with like. If we're in the dairy sector, doing things in a similar way, we're actually reporting and sharing information in a similar manner, which helps us move forward faster. Just a bit of our housekeeping. This is a 2-hour meeting today, and there'll be insights from many of the team, as you see here on the screen. Questions will be a challenge. I ask you to put burning questions in the chat. There is a 15-minute question and answer session at the end. So we'll use the chat there again, and I'll select a range of questions across the different topics as best I can. If your question does not get answered in the chat, we'll get it answered in the FAQs on the IDF website. So we will address them over time. The action team can address those. So that's the question and answer. Don't wait till the end to put your questions in the chat, because if we've got time, which we probably won't, but if we've got time, I might just ask a question after each speaker, but I don't anticipate that'll be the process. If you didn't realize this meeting is being recorded, just so you're aware. We have, even though we've had 650 registrations, we've also had a number of organizations and people come to us saying, I can't make that time, being a global audience. Are you going to record it? So we're doing that for that purpose. But enough from me. The speakers have guaranteed me they're going to keep to time. I don't want to fall guilty of that. We will now move forward into the program, as you're seeing on the screen here. And I believe I'm introducing now Piercristiano Brazzale, who's the president of the International Dairy Federation, who's going to provide our welcoming address. Piercristiano unfortunately cannot be with us today, but he's done a recording. So Maria, could I ask you to start the recording, please?
Dear dairy experts, it is a pleasure for me to be with you remotely today and contribute to this session titled deep dive of the IDF Global Carbon Footprint Standard for the dairy sector. This webinar will give you an introduction on how to calculate the carbon footprint of milk and dairy products. You will learn how to assess and understand the carbon footprint of dairy by using life cycle assessment and the methodology developed by IDF. I am unfortunately not able to be with you today, but we welcome your question and discussion to the experts of this webinar. It is important to remind ourselves that we are currently in a changing and challenging world, and we need to work for a sustainable dairy sector. As an introduction, I would like to mention that the IDF started working on a first guide on how to calculate the carbon footprint on dairy products in 2009-2010. This publication was updated in 2015. A lot has happened since, and the attention around the carbon footprint has increased. Our new global carbon footprint standard, which was released in September 2022 in India, includes new updates and many changes, yet no major ones. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the experts that contributed to develop the last version of the LCA. The action teams remain active to continue working on the topic. Do not hesitate to contact your national committees if you wish to participate. So I would like to thank the co-chairs, Sanne Dekker and Anna Fliesio, the project manager, Lindsay, IDF representative, Maria Sanchez-Minor, in total more than 50 members from more than 17 different countries. In the next slides, you will find some complementary work of the IDF, either that is recently published or that will be published in the coming month. First is the IDF Bulletin on Carbon Sequestration, LCA Guidelines for Calculating Carbon Sequestration in Cattle Production Systems. It was published in September 2022, and you can download it for free on the website. We also have specific guidelines to promote eco-friendly and energy-saving dairy technologies. Some recent ones include a bulletin on energy-saving technologies at the dairy plant. Ongoing work is still very important. We are about to finish a bulletin on ecosystem services provided by the dairy sector, which contains some theoretical part on the services provided by the dairy sector and a collection of case studies. We are also working on sustainability and circularity. We have an action team who is currently working on some guidance on solid waste management, primarily focused at processing level on two topics: food loss and food waste, and packaging waste. The Dairy Sustainability Outlook explores case studies of sustainable practice and innovations across the dairy sector. We showcase a collection of case studies that support the dairy sector in delivering on its commitment to sustainable development. We publish at least one every year, in June, and quite frequently some special editions, such as our recent one on climate, which was prepared for COP27. Finally, I would like to invite you to apply at 2 awards. The first one is the IDF Dairy Innovation Awards. It is hosted by the International Dairy Federation in partnership with the world-leading food and drinks consultancy Zenith Global, with the headline sponsorship from Tetra Pak. The focus is on sustainable and community-led initiative, as well as new product development and innovative practice. There are 9 categories: sustainable farming practice, sustainable processing, sustainable packaging, new product development with a focus on food safety and consumers' nutrition, women empowerment in the dairy sector, climate action, and marketing and communication initiative building the dairy category. The second prize is aimed towards the recognition of scientists and/or technologists in the dairy science and technology field. We invite early career scientists, including graduate and postgraduate students who are less than 3 years since graduation from their highest degree attained. There are 3 place winners and they will receive travel support, an honorarium and a place to present their work at the IDF World Dairy Summit in Chicago. We invite you to join IDF community for the IDF World Dairy Summit 2023 in Chicago in October 16 till 19.
Okay, so I think, thank you, Piercristiano, for that introduction and the breadth of the IDF work that's going on. We're now going to move quickly on to our next part of the agenda, which is looking at the background and the introduction and the purpose of the guide and summary of updates. Now, this is going to be led off by Dr. Sanne Dekker. Sanne is Environmental Impact Assessment Specialist at FrieslandCampina, together with Anna Flusho, who, as Piercristiano just said, co-chaired this action team. But Sanne will be taking on the lead in this bit, and Anna will do the summing up at the end, I believe. So over to you, Sanne.
Thank you, Brian.
Oops, have I got that wrong? Anna.
Yes, I will start. And I will see if I can switch the slides as well. Otherwise, Maria, please help me out here and go to the next slide.
So just while that's happening, why don't I introduce you, Anna? Anna is the scientific lead on climate and environment at Arla Foods, based in Denmark, with a background in LCA. And so, as I mentioned, Sanne and Anna co-chaired this action team to develop this update. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Brian. And I still have a problem to switch slide, but there it came. So I will just give an update here on background, introduction, and the purpose of the guide. And but before, because what we will talk about here today is this updated carbon footprint standard developed by the IDF. But before going into that, I just wanted to go a quick historic update on what have happened within LCA and dairy and carbon footprinting. And the first LCA of milk was published in the year 2000. So someone else is switching my slide now. Yeah, so the whole carbon footprint is still relatively young, you could say. But the standard development started, as Piercristiano said, back in 2009 and 10, when we launched the first IDF guideline. And then in 2015, we revised it and did an update, but there has also been other organizations working on this field, and FAO launched their guidelines for calculating environmental footprint of large ruminants in 2016. And there is also the project within EU on product environmental footprinting that was launched in 2018. But to continue on what we have been doing within this work, and now I'm just waiting for the slides to switch again. So I will ask you, Maria, can you help me click one slide? Thank you. So this is the guideline that we have updated. So it's the International Dairy Federation's Global Carbon Footprint Standard for the dairy sector. And we launched that in September last year. And as Piercristiano also mentioned, it's been a work by this LCA action team by IDF, consisting of 50 LCA and dairy experts covering 17 nationalities. And have been a pleasure to co-chair this together with Sanne Dekker. And then we also had this update of the guideline, Lindsay from GDP as the project manager, and of course, Maria Sanchez from IDF as well. So this is basically how can you calculate the carbon footprint from for dairy products. And when we started this work and this revision, because a lot has happened the last years, and then we started to look, okay, what new guidelines have been coming out since the last revision back in 2015. And there are, of course, some general guidelines that are like the ISO standards that basically all LCA or carbon footprint studies is based upon. Then we also have the greenhouse gas protocol when it comes to corporate reporting. We have the PEF, the product environmental footprint standard or guideline from EU, and then we also have the PAS 2050 from UK. So there are some general guidelines on how to calculate carbon footprint. But then we also have the more dairy specific ones, the IDF, the dairy PEF from EU, FAO's LEAP on large ruminants, and an EPD on dairy as well. So not to go into detail on this, but the good thing is that even there are several guidelines or standards out there, they are more or less aligned, which is really good. Then to the left or to the right on this slide, you can also see some other guidelines that is kind of supporting, for example, the IPCC on what emission factors to use for methane emissions and nitrous oxide. It's a greenhouse gas protocol for reporting, and for example, CSEQ guideline on how to quantify carbon removals, which also Piercristiano mentioned earlier. And the whole purpose with the IDF guideline, I mean, the overall aim with this guide is to support the dairy industry in mitigating the greenhouse gas emission and to reduce its potential impact on global climate change. So use this methodology that we have developed. It will help on the reporting. How should you report? It could be on corporate level or product level, your greenhouse gas emissions from all life cycle stages. So both from farming, manufacturing operations, and the rest of the value chain. It's also about monitoring emission to be able to demonstrate progress over time. And it's also to identify hotspots. So where are your main impacts within the value chain, and how should you focus mitigation actions most effectively? And then also to determine the impact of different greenhouse gas emissions and see what are the mitigation options. Is about quantifying the carbon footprint of dairy products along the value chain in a life cycle perspective and be able to communicate about that to both customers and consumers. And then of course also to compare carbon footprint between dairy products or between other foods. But that is also really important to stress that when comparing foods with each other, is of course really important also to include the nutritional value and be really careful how you define the functional unit of your system. So very short, the IDF guide in a summary. So the IDF guide is used as attributional LCA opposed to consequential. I know Jude will come into that a little bit later. And as I said before, the different guidelines out there on how to quantify the carbon footprint or environmental footprint of dairy products are more or less aligned. So they are principle aligned. This updated version of the IDF guide, it includes guidance for the whole value chain from cradle to grave. And it also includes a proposal for the nutritional value for dairy products or for products in general. How to include that in your functional unit. And then it also includes a reference to calculate other environmental impacts. Even though the focus is on climate, there are also reference how can you address other environmental impacts in your study. So with that, I would like to give the word to the next speaker.
Thank you, Anna.